Hello, Trojan fans. Welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, joined alongside my partner in crime, Mr. Connor Morrissette, a.k.a. Triple Double. We're here to talk all about USC football. About 2 weeks into fall camp, so we're going to kind of go over what we've seen out there from the Trojans. Connor put up a list this morning on USCFootball.com. A bunch of guys he feels have really improved their stock over the last couple of weeks, so we're going to go over some of the highlights of that. It's a VIP article. If you are not a VIP member, right now you can get 50% off an annual subscription to USCFootball.com. You do not want to miss it. You will be the most informed Trojan fan in your circle. Make sure you sign up, USCFootball.com. It is well worth it. You will enjoy it. $60 for a whole year. You can't beat that. That's like the price of lunch. Get in there and read articles like Connor's and a bunch of ones we do all the time. There's content going up constantly over at USCFootball.com. If you have questions or comments, podcast at USCFootball.com is our email address. We got a couple emails to get to. You can also leave us a voicemail. Shoot us a text. Either one of those works. 424-254-9141 is the number. We got a voicemail for you today. And if you have Apple Podcast or Spotify is how you listen to the show, if you listen on the podcast forum, because we're also live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook. But if you have the podcast, if that's how you're listening to it, on Apple and Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review. And we love those. And I got to check out the Spotify ones. I think we're about 4.9 over there, and Apple Podcasts, we're 4.8. But we do have, so we got to get that up. We do have a new rating over there on the Apple Podcast, our new review. It's from Mile High Mark. It says, the best source of USC football news. He said, I've been listening to the Peristyle Podcast for well over a decade. Ryan and the team do an amazing job getting the inside scoop on the team in preparation for the season and week to week during the season. Keep up the great work and fight on, which is very nice. It's very nice to have you here, Connor. Sorry I give the whole preamble to get you a chance to say hello, but hello.
No, that's fine. Hello. Thank you to Mile High Mark for the nice review. That's awesome. Great to see it. But yeah, doing well. Excited to talk about some stock risers, some other stuff with USC football. It's tough news about Prophet Brown we'll get into. So the season's almost here, Ryan. We're getting close.
It is getting very, very close and looking forward to it. And so just let people know. We talked about the VIP access to USCFootball.com. Half off right now. So don't miss the fall camp special. We're getting towards the end of fall camp, but 2 weeks in, we're going to get into some of what's been going on there. We also want to thank our sponsor, Trader Joe's, who have been amazing to us. I popped in there yesterday. I know sometimes, Connor, I go in for the full week stuff. Sometimes you just get, some quick hitters. I needed to get a little bit of fruit. I needed some citrus. I was making some stuff. Jump in there, and it's always good. Heading over to Trader Joe's. I've been getting so they have a lot of cookies. Like there's the packaged cookies, but in the bakery area, the chocolate chip cookies with sea salt on them. I've got them. I think I bought them twice in the last week. They're really good. I went over to my friend Bruce Feldman, friend of the show. Went over there and saw his kids, and I brought, they had dinner over there, and I brought some of those cookies, and those went very quickly. We brought some snickerdoodles too, which I like, but the sea salt with the chocolate chip, those were really, really good. I don't know if you've had those.
No, but making me hungry. That sounds delicious.
You're always hungry. Yeah. And we are, like I mentioned, we're live on YouTube. Thanks again to Trader Joe's, by the way. Live on YouTube, live on Facebook. If you have questions or comments, I will try to put them up on the screen. Jeff says a week away from Salute to Troy. Yes. So that'll be on campus. And speaking of Trader Joe's, I think they're working out something with Salute to Troy. We'll see. I tried to connect that up a little bit. So we'll see if that, I haven't heard. I got to check in on that. Blackie Chan, fight on, Trojan fam. And so we'll go in there. So, and we had a question. Nick says, who's hurt? And I guess we could probably start with that, Connor. The first major injury news we've had from fall camp.
Yes, unfortunately, Prophet Brown had a non-contact lower body injury, so something with his leg. Lincoln Riley didn't get into specifics, but yeah, Prophet Brown was a guy who USC fans know well, a recruit out of high school, waited his turn, had the inside track, it looked like to me, to start at the nickelback position this year. So finally a guy who's going to maybe get his chance. He still would have to earn it through all of fall camp, but he was having a good fall camp by all accounts. And then unfortunately at one of these practices, he had a non-contact injury and he'll be out at least the first half of the season, it sounds like, but they were optimistic that they'd get him back for the second half of the year. But just very frustrating news for a guy who's done all the right things, said all the right things, has a great attitude, is emerging as a leader. You really feel for a guy like him who he's in his last year of collegiate eligibility, and this was going to be a big year for him. So he'll be out, but it's not season ending. So I guess we can look on the bright side with that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think we sort of gave Chris and Shotgun a little bit of ribbing for not having him higher on the top 30 list, because it looked to us like he was going to be the starting nickel. And, just from the beginning parts of practice he was. And then I think one of the practices you guys were out there, it seemed like he left. And then on Friday, when they had the first full pads practice that we were able to see, he comes out of the tunnel on a scooter, riding with some crutches like underneath. So that was unfortunate to see. And then Lincoln Riley addressed it on Friday. And, like you said, non-contact. He said it sounded like it could have been like half the season with the first part of what Riley was saying, but then he said a few games, the second part of it. So we'll see if he's able to come back. We don't know exactly what the injury is, but yeah, that's unfortunate. But it's going to open up. So there's some good depth there, I think, in the secondary. Just you're sort of piecing it around to who's going to play where, and it should open up some opportunities for some other guys.
Yeah, name to pay attention to, excuse me, is true freshman Alex Graham from Detroit, Michigan, talking with Danton Lynn. Out of all those true freshman defensive backs, it seems like Graham has picked up the defense the fastest. They're repping him all over, but he's played a lot in the slot. And I don't think it's crazy to say that he may be a starter in that first game against Missouri State. We'll see what defense Danton Lynn starts the game in. But if they do use that traditional defensive formation where they have a nickelback, it certainly could be Alex Graham. DJ Harvey, someone else to pay attention to. Maybe Marcellus Williams gets some reps there. Some of those other young guys are repping there, but I don't think they're quite with the first team yet. So Alex Graham, I think his stock is rising. We'll get into him a little bit more later when we talk about some of the stock risers at USC. But yeah, he's the name to pay attention to.
Yeah. So we'll see there, and we'll see what we can watch from practice sort of going forward. There's going to be a scrimmage on Friday that will be open to the media. Now, we can't report on it, but obviously there's, you can get some good information so we can sort of have some background. So when we're talking to you guys, it's not coming out of nowhere. It was helpful to watch 2 full practices. And then I think Friday the Coliseum will be an important one just because you get a better view of the whole thing. It's harder for us to see a lot of the lineman stuff when we're watching practice, but then it depends where they're going. But usually from the Coliseum, you get to be up a little bit, and you can kind of see everything that's going on. If they're doing position drills, you can take a look at everybody. The team stuff is easier, Sometimes there's a lot of players in the way, and they're on the other side of the field you can't see. But it does give us, I think those open practices give a little bit of, at least background info from we can ask questions later and figure out, really what's going on.
I know we're sworn to secrecy, but can
Yeah.
we talk about the scrimmage from last year? Is the statute of limitations over for that?
I would think so, right? Like, I think I know what you're going to mention. But
well, just last year, leaving that scrimmage, I think we couldn't report on it, but we all thought that didn't really look very good. And so that kind of led to some of the projections that we had. And then, of course, they came out and beat LSU, and it was like, okay, maybe they were holding some stuff back in that scrimmage. But as the year went on, some of the concerns that we saw kind of ended up playing out. So while we can't report on it, as we've said a lot, it definitely helps to assess the team. And we both feel, Ryan, that USC is better this year than last year. I expect the scrimmage to show that. We're going to be looking at the offensive line. I think that's probably the biggest thing in that scrimmage that we can take away. Who's that first group? How do they look against some of these defensive linemen who USC's brought in? And that will have an impact on how the season goes, of course. But that's probably the biggest unknown on the team, where I think if you look at the roster, there are a lot of sure things. You like the receiving core, that the secondary looks good. I think the quarterback and the offensive line, those are the two question marks, and we'll see how they do in this scrimmage.
We'll see. And do you remember one of the things that came out of that scrimmage was we were like, why is Bear Alexander running with the second team, And he ends up being, we thought he was going to be the most important player on the whole team, or one of them, and ends up being like a non-factor and red shirts and transfers out. So that was sort of like that's not good that he, we didn't think it was good that he was running with the second team. We couldn't report that, but looking back on it now, you're like, yeah, that probably meant something.
And then, against LSU, he didn't start, and Michigan, that was kind of the beginning of the end for him, where he felt like he deserved to be starting, and all indications that we heard was he was dogging it in practice.
Yeah.
And he didn't earn the starting job. So I don't know if there will be any kind of crazy things like that happening, maybe if there's an injury, but I don't think anyone has been dogging it to the level of Bear Alexander last year. But at this time last year, that was the first, you're absolutely right. That scrimmage was the first indication that, okay, something's wrong here. I think Lincoln Riley might have challenged Bear earlier, and he doesn't really challenge a lot of guys. So maybe that was the first indication. But yeah, I do think the team is in a much better place chemistry-wise and effort-wise this year than last year. And yeah, who is with that first team group, of course, will be significant, and we'll see who that is.
A lot of talk in the chat. So if you are watching us live on YouTube or Facebook, we really appreciate that. And if you put questions in there, just put question and I'll star it and get back to it later, and we can answer it later in the show. If you're watching us, Connor is still remote. He's his bike is, it's a little too far to ride from up in Studio City or wherever. But his car's still in his shop. So any mechanics out there, maybe jump in the chat and say, hey, what's going on?
I'm having awful car trouble, so please be thinking of me.
But a lot of the talk in the chat right now is about the defensive side. We're gonna, I think you're right with the offensive line and Jade Mayava, and that's one of the aspects where we've watched, and just even watching spring ball and the defensive line looks better. But HR Pickett stuff has had a bunch of comments in there. But he says USC was great on third downs, horrible on fourth. They didn't have a sack by the defensive line until week 8. If they've come more consistent, they can win 10 games easily. And we're going to have an interview with Braylon Shelby coming up in a little bit. We just talked to him, and I've asked Danton Lynn about that too. That does seem to be like a concerted effort on the defense to generate more tackles for loss, to generate more sacks. My thing is they were fundamentally sound last year, but they weren't forcing the negative plays. And I think if they can force a bunch more of those, it can, make the defense that improved a lot last year improve even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about winning 10 games easily. I think that would be a challenge, but something that stood out to me too. I think when we look at the defense, I love what they have in the middle of that defensive line. I do think they've made some major improvements there, but the edge rushers, they were very, very just what's the word I'm looking for? Like they made it known that they trust the guys who are coming back. Anthony Lucas and Cameron Fountain and Braylon Shelby. USC, when David Bailey was in the portal, he went to Texas Tech for a lot of money. I don't know if USC would have been willing to extend itself if they did feel like they needed a defensive end. But when he was in the portal, we heard almost immediately that we're going to trust our guys. That's the word from USC, and that they didn't want to add an edge rusher. So that's another interesting storyline heading into the season. Was the USC staff correct in that evaluation? Did the development of these defensive ends, is that enough to where they didn't need to add someone from the portal? Because, that was a huge problem last year. And by all accounts, we've heard great things about Cameron Fountain and Braylon Shelby and Anthony Lucas. Those guys seem improved, but Lucas doesn't have a sack in his career. And Shelby, last season, I do think he's gotten better, and I'm excited to share the interview we did with him. His goal is 8 sacks. He had 3 last year, so he'll need to take a jump. And Cam Fountain is still very raw, even though he has made some improvements. So is the USC staff right about that bet? And I think that's going to have a big impact on how well the season goes. Of course, they didn't feel like they needed to add a proven edge rusher. Let's see if they're right about that.
Yeah, we'll see. And that was a little preview. Yeah, Shelby told us his goal is 8 sacks. So Yeah, they were talking in the chat where Eric Gentry led the team in tackles for loss and was out. Like that kind of stuff you can't have. So I think that was certainly a focus this offseason. And if they can stay fundamentally sound, yes, they've had a few breakdowns and some of the late fourth quarter stuff was bad. But you bring in Tremaine Carroll, and you feel like you can do a lot with him as a strength and conditioning coach, and then generate more negative plays. I think this defense could be in a much better place. So we'll see.
They should be in a much better place, especially with Eric Gentry. The health of him is so huge because he brings that pass rusher ability. We've heard from offensive players that they feel like he shuts down one half of the field just by being out there. So he is, of course, such a key piece. And the longer he can stay healthy, it's not a hot take. I say it every week. He is one of those guys with that super high ceiling, and there aren't a ton of guys on the defense who fit that mold. So anytime you can have like that All-American type of guy, that is so pivotal. So hopefully he stays healthy the whole year because he's a guy who makes a massive difference.
We one of the things we talked to Shelby about, and I asked him like, hey, does it matter to you guys, or you hear that the coaches poll and the AP poll preseason come out and you guys aren't ranked, you're more under the radar? And he's like, it's not at all. He's like, it wasn't a thing for him. Certainly for fans. I mean, one of my longtime best friends, who he would go to USC games with me back in the day, but he's a Harvard guy, so whatever. But he just texted me this morning. He's like, great to see USC ranked. And it was like a picture of like the rank. He's like, oh, wait, no. And so I think it matters to fans. And the AP poll came out since the last we did our show. USC was others receiving votes, actually would have come in at number 30 behind Louisville, where Miller Moss is. But, obviously there's the same suspects that are ranked from the Big Ten, Penn State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame and Oregon, Notre Dame's not the Big Ten, but, USC opponent, all in the top 10. Illinois, USC plays on the road, number 12. Michigan's coming in at 14. Indiana's at 20. There's some other teams receiving votes like Iowa and Nebraska and Minnesota, but to me, you don't have to make much of this. It's like more of a prove it thing. Like they'll buy into USC if they start winning, but you gotta win. So yeah, if they go undefeated to start the season and actually beat Illinois on the road, they'll jump way up. They will. But right now it's sort of like prove it, and I don't have an issue with it, but I know some fans kind of get annoyed.
Well, I mean, it's obviously not how you start; it's how you finish. But like, remember when Lincoln Riley got hired? I think if you told anyone that they wouldn't be ranked to begin his fourth season, would all be like, "What is going on with that?" So yeah, he's in a major prove it year, and he seems to have a quiet confidence that maybe last year wasn't there. I remember at the Big Ten Media Day in Indianapolis ahead of last season, he ended the interview that we did with him, and he said, we're not where we want to be right now. We know that, but we're working really hard to get there. Like, he acknowledged some of the shortcomings in the program, and that was not the vibe that I got in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. I feel like he's more confident heading into this year. So let's see if they can back that up. But it is an exciting time, and I understand why USC isn't ranked. So if I'm a fan, I wouldn't get bent out of shape about it. But like, it is frustrating when it's the fourth year of this coach who was brought in to resurrect the program, and that hasn't happened yet. So great first year from him, though. I sometimes kind of leave that out. The last 2 years, of course, haven't been great, but we got to give him credit for that first year. It didn't end great, but winning 11 games, that is very impressive.
It is very impressive. The chat's pretty active right now. We got Jose. Hello, Trojan family. Thanks. Jose. You might have been watching a little. If you're watching like the delayed version, then I did that like very earlier. But thanks, Jose, and thanks everyone that's in there. We haven't heard from anyone from Facebook yet, so if you're on Facebook, say hello and jump in the chat as well. But it's great to see everyone on our YouTube live page over at Inside Troy. Make sure you sign up there. We're actually doing some shorts and stuff over there now, which is cool. So if you like those, we're trying to do more content all over the place, do whatever we can, just covering USC fall camp up and down. And if you're watching, I got these new little graphics down here too. I changed Twitter's there's no more bird, it's X. So I finally updated the graphics so you can see that. Hopefully you enjoy those. But yeah, I love it. And then I'm going to star some questions in the chat as we're going. So make sure if you have a question for us, we have some emails and voicemails, like I mentioned, but we'll get to your questions as well. Okay. Other fall camp stuff. We have to get into the stock risers and stuff too. But anything else from these last couple weeks of practices that has stood out to you, Connor, that you want to discuss?
I think a lot of it we hit on last week because we haven't been to a practice now since Friday. And when did we do the show last week? What day was that?
Was it Thursday maybe or maybe Wednesday?
Yeah, I think it was Thursday. So we've only seen one more practice since. I think
full pads for the first time. So we got
I think the emergence of Wayman Jordan was probably a big thing from that day when after Lincoln Riley, who's been talking up Jordan the whole offseason, he just said, I know we have a diamond in the rough here, and USC's posted some clips from these full padded practices on Twitter and on Instagram and stuff. And one of them, Jordan makes a really nice catch. So it's clear that he's improving as a pass catcher. He just seems like a guy who's going to fill right in after Marshawn Lloyd, after Woody Marks, and be that bell cow running back for USC. So that kind of came through to me, I think, after the last practice. So I don't know if the expectations could be any higher for him based on what people are saying, which is great.
No, I think the expectations are very high for him, and for good reason. If Lincoln Riley has done at least one thing right every year, and it's brought in a great running back. And from Travis Dye to Marshawn Lloyd to Woody Marks, the MVP of the whole team last year, and a lot of people feel Wayman Jordan can be the same. So we'll kind of see about that. Okay, there's one other before we get to the. Actually, let's get into it. We'll get into your stock riser. So like I mentioned, over at uscfootball.com, you can check out Connor's story. Goes through different position groups. It's not, some numbered list or anything, just sort of guys that we've been hearing a little buzz. If you like the Cover 3 podcast, they do they have a little buzzing thing. We could do like the buzzing. Like, these guys are buzzing or whatever. It might have been from like the Barton Simmons days when he was there. Like, I think he might be one of the voices on that. But a little bit of buzz, a little bit of guys that either we've seen or talked to other players or coaches about, or just heard from sources that were out there watching practice that kind of let us know what they think. So, yeah, I don't know where you want to start, Connor, but we can get into some of those guys.
First, I want to start with this. So if you subscribe and you see the list, the most represented position group is the offensive line, and we've heard good things about the offensive line. I would say without DJ Wingfield, it's been better than I was expecting based on what we've been able to see. But let me just say this. Lincoln Riley knows what he's doing. He knows the perception of the line without Wingfield isn't in a good place. He's talking it up. I'm not saying don't believe him. I do agree with him that the depth is good, but there's a reason we've heard so much praise about the offensive line. It's because the fan base recognizes that is a question mark a little bit, and Riley is trying to calm some people down and go out of his way to really build it up. That's something that he's done pretty consistently in his time at USC. If there are question marks, he'll go out of his way to talk up some of those position groups. We saw it with the defensive line last year as an example. So let me just start there. But I agree with him, like some of the praise is warranted, and like I'm not saying he's lying, but there's a reason that the offensive line is so well represented. Riley knows that that's a question mark, and he's talking it up. So a guy on the list who is a stock riser is Micah Banuelos, who's been playing some left guard for USC, who's finally healthy. And I don't know if we can say for sure right now that he's going to be a really successful starter if he ends up winning the job, but he's certainly doing better than he was doing in the past, and he's showing why he was a highly ranked recruit, and he seems to be in a good place right now. So I just want to say, too, just because some of these people are on that stock riser list, I'm not saying like, oh, they're going to go on and do really well. They're just doing better than where they were in the past. And Banuelos has a chance to win the left guard job. He has a chance to be really good, and we'll see how it all plays out. But just because someone is on that list, I don't think that means for sure that they're going to have this great season. It just means they're doing better than expected right now, if that makes sense.
All right. What other guys do you want to highlight?
Yeah. So I had some tiers. So the first tier, I guess it's only two, but the first tier is guys who coming into camp, expectations were sky high, and they're just doing their thing. And I don't know if they're right at what the expectations were or they're exceeding them so far, but it's three guys. It's Wayman Jordan, who we talked about. It's Makai Lemon, and it's Eric Gentry. So we already hit on Jordan, but I can just start with Makai and then Gentry. So every day when we can watch practice, we see the returners, and Makai Lemon is returning punts consistently, and he just is a natural at that. He is so fluid, and we'll see if they use him as a punt returner this year because he's so important as a receiver, but he just looks so natural doing that. We asked Jaden Mayava, who the receiver who he has the best connection with is, and he mentioned Makai Lemon first. Braylon Shelby, when you hear that interview, he said Makai Lemon has been someone who's really made it hard for the defense. Like, he is having an awesome camp, and all signs are pointing to him to continue to develop and just have a great season. So people should definitely be excited about him. And then with Eric Gentry, of course, you just hope he can stay healthy, but he's been having a huge camp. Jade Mayava said that he's the player who's made the offense's life the most difficult. He shuts down half the field when he's out there. Mayava said if he looks in Gentry's direction and there's someone in the progression over there, he'll immediately go to his next progression. So those guys are primed for huge years, and their stock, it was already pretty high, but it might even be higher now 2 weeks into fall camp.
Yeah, I agree with you on those guys, and make sure you check out the article for everything out there. A lot of different, offensive linemen listed, different guys. I think there are a lot of options. I mean, there's some areas where you're like, okay, Eric Gentry, Desmond Stevens, like, you feel good about that. I think the depth behind them, there was some concern, and I think there's more positivity there. Some of the secondary spots where you lost a lot of guys, feeling like, okay, there's a bunch of different players that could step up and fill in roles. Same thing on the defensive line. There's a lot of new bodies. There's a lot of options there. It feels like this team has a lot of options. And I think on the offensive line, we weren't exactly sure if some of those options would be workable or not. But, coming in there, he's like, okay, I mean, like you said, Riley's pretty optimistic about it. For what we've seen, there's some reason for optimism. Maybe we'll get some more from watching the scrimmage on Friday. But yeah, overall, I think that, I think feel pretty good about where this roster is, what they've done in the offseason, coaching-wise, personnel-wise, and just sort of getting this thing going. And none of it matters, right, unless you win games on Saturdays. But I think both of us feel more comfortable feeling like this team's going to win more games on Saturdays because of everything they've done up until this point.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next group of tiers, I'll start with the offense. It's guys who haven't contributed in the past, either because they've been hurt or just not been ready, or they're freshmen. And I singled out two guys. So the first is Micah Benuelos. He's pushing for that left guard spot. We've heard too, Tobias Raymond might be taking some reps there as well. So USC is still tinkering with that best five, but if Wingfield is out and ineligible, we'll learn on Monday the next step with him in the court case for his quest to be eligible. If he's out, Benuelos is firmly making a push to be a left guard starter. We'll see if that ends up happening, but his stock is certainly on the rise. And then a guy who I don't think fans know a ton about because he's new. We've heard some good things about true freshman receiver Corey Sims, Ryan. He looks the most physically developed out of that true freshman receiver group. He was the only true freshman receiver who enrolled early, so he had spring camp, and the other guys didn't. That is a big boost to him. But just physically, we've heard really good things about him as a blocker, and I don't know with 100% certainty that he'll be in the receiver rotation to start the year, but remember a couple years ago, as the season went on, Makai Lemon and Deuce Robinson got into the rotation more and more, and Sims is the guy who he may not start in that rotation, but he seems like the most advanced out of those younger guys, and he potentially could have a chance to play as a true freshman, even though the receiver room is pretty deep. We've heard some pretty good things about him, which is really exciting.
No, it is exciting. And it's funny, we talked to Braylon Shelby. We mentioned Zacharias Williams too, and he's like, that guy can play. So I think, again, we know the top two, and I asked, when we got to talk to Lincoln Riley in Vegas, I asked him about that, the receiver rotation, knowing, last year there was like 5 number one potential guys, and now you got like the 2 alphas and then a bunch of guys sort of coming up behind them. But I think we're hearing better things about some of those guys, and Corey Sims is someone that you wouldn't mention much, but you look at him if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, he's just a good looking receiver, and that was a shot I took, I think, of from Friday's practice of him catching a pass. But yeah, it's someone that maybe you didn't expect, but looks like he can be, one of those guys that stock's rising and maybe gets in the rotation, like you said.
Yeah, he looks like a guy. And then on defense, the same tier here, guys who either are new or true freshmen, didn't contribute last year. So we just continue, Ryan, to hear great things about Jakeem Stewart and Floyd Buchard in the middle of that defensive line. Danton Lynn went on Mason in Ireland last week on ESPN LA and talked about how they want to play more defensive linemen this year. I think Jakeem and Floyd have a chance to be in the rotation, not just against Missouri State and Georgia Southern, but potentially against some of the Big Ten teams on the schedule, especially Jakeem. I see him playing double-digit snaps at a minimum every game. Floyd Buchard has a chance to be in that rotation too. So that's great for USC's defensive line recruiting. Shout out to Eric Henderson, Sean Nua, getting guys in the building who can contribute right away, especially at that position is not always easy, but it looks like USC has 2 good players there. And then in the secondary, Kennedy Urlacher is a player that we just continue to hear really good things about from Lincoln Riley. He has been named as a top performer at practice after 2 of the practices we've been at. If I was looking at that safety depth chart, it seems like it's him and Christian Pierce battling for that 3rd safety spot. We've heard a lot more about Kennedy than we have Pierce at this point, so it wouldn't surprise me if Kennedy Urlacher is that first safety to come off the bench who will play a good amount and be in the rotation after Kamari Ramsey and Bishop Fitzgerald. I think those guys are the 2 starters, but Kennedy Urlacher, it seems like, is having a great camp. And then a guy we talked about earlier, Alex Graham, he's taken some first-team reps at nickel, and in certain packages, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him. So he might be someone who they want to get some reps early, and then when Big Ten play happens, if he did well those first few games, maybe he can stay in the rotation. But I think it's still going to kind of be a trial for him early on. And if he passes, great. If not, maybe they'll switch it up. But yeah, he's a name we continue to hear good things about too.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff there. Was there another tier, or is that good? Were you good with the...
Those were the 2 tiers, okay. Not a lot of tiers.
I just wanted to make sure. I was like, wait, did I forget a tier or something? Okay. I agree with all those. Like Alex Graham, got to interview him over in Hawaii, and just a great kid. And it was kind of just quiet coming in here. And now when we got to, it looked like he was going to be. I think he was getting like some 2nd-team reps at that nickel spot when Prophet Brown was in there. Now that he's out, you're like, wow, okay, there's an opportunity here. And we were asked about, sort of freshmen that could come in and play. And in the beginning, you're just thinking like Jakeem Stewart. Now there's more names out there that actually too deep for sure, but, potentially getting some decent playing time too.
It makes a huge difference too. And last season, USC was kind of grasping at straws with that middle of the defensive line where they added some weight on Nate Clifton and they got good reps from Gavin Meyer. And then we all remember Bear left, so that hurt them. And at the end of the year, like Kobe Pepe was playing, Jade was playing a role. I don't want to say Jade wasn't ready, but I think if Jade was a true freshman this year, I don't think he would necessarily have played last year. Like they just have so many more bodies in the middle. And now he's coming into a 2nd year. He'll have a chance to be in the rotation too. So it's significant that USC has added so many guys like from the portal in Jamal Jarrett and Keyshawn Silver. So like they're obviously going to be playing. And then there's freshmen on top of that who will be in the mix as well. Like that is a significant change from a year ago when we started the show talking about it last week. Like what are the position groups that have impressed us the most? What are the areas that we can see real tangible change from last year to this year? And I just continue to start with the defensive line, especially in the middle. We'll see if they can rush the passer on the outside. But in the middle, I do think they'll be a lot better against the run.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's hard to be worse. But, I think as far as rushing the passer, but get bigger bodies, better against the run. And I think, they were really good on third down last year, but then fourth down gave up a lot. If you can make it stop getting stop on, 3rd and 4 to make 4th and 1, the team's probably going to go for it. If it can be 3rd and 8, then, that's not going to happen as much. So I think you can help a lot by generating some more pass rush. They'll stop the run better. And the personnel that we see out there looks like it's going to be better than what we saw in years past. All right. One other thing I was going to get to involved a USC football game from a few years ago. Is there anything else from camp that you wanted to discuss, or we can move on? We got some questions and stuff too.
Yeah, I think we're good.
So John Mateer, if you know, quarterback was at Washington State and transferred to Oklahoma. Came along with his offensive coordinator. There's a lot of optimism in Oklahoma. What were they, 6-7 last year or 5-7? I forget what they weren't very.
I think
good.
6-7. Yeah,
6-7. So they were 6-6 in the regular season, like USC was, and then they beat Alabama at the end of the season or whatever. So a lot of hopes and prayers going into, hey, the quarterback situation could be better, and there's some stories started circulating yesterday that John Mateer was involved in sports gambling. It was through his Venmo account, and it was betting on the USC-UCLA game from 2022. Apparently lost, so he must have had UCLA. The Bruins were down like 2 or 3 or whatever late in the game and driving with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and then Corey Foreman ends up getting that, maybe his only good play of his career. I don't know. There wasn't much going on there, but he gets that pick and seals the win. And according to reports, John Mateer lost the bet because of it. I know Pete Thamel put out that he's denying it, and Oklahoma's looking into it. But I just thought that was just kind of an interesting tidbit that somehow he bet with a teammate, one of his Washington State teammates, I think an offensive lineman, on the wrong side of the USC-UCLA game from 2022 in the Rose Bowl.
Thamel just tweeted 12 minutes ago, I've been told to expect a statement from John Mateer this afternoon that denies any involvement in gambling. He said Oklahoma football practice and is expected to put something out in the near future. I guess question for you, if he was only gambling with a teammate, is that still not allowed? Can you do like a $20 bet with your teammate? And
I don't think you can. Not on the sport that you play. I think they're loosening things up for if you want to bet like NBA games or something. I don't know. But I don't think
I would have a hard time suspending a kid. Like, and maybe it's worse than this, but if it really was with a teammate and it was, like maybe they had a bye week and they're just sitting on the couch and it's like, I'll bet you $20 here, USC wins or UCLA wins, and then he's got to pay. Like, I'd have a hard time penalizing a kid for that, but I guess if rules are rules. But if he was, using like one of those betting accounts and
right,
maybe there's other stuff we don't know about, like if he was betting on his own games, that's obviously a no-no. But if it was like a harmless wager with a friend, I'd have a hard time cracking down on him. But if it was something else, then that's a problem.
Just don't name it in your Venmo account and have it public. Like
exactly. So he's going to deny it, but like the evidence was pretty strong. And I saw a lot of like weird Twitter accounts were tweeting about it, and I was like, is this real? And then it was real. He had that on his Venmo. It was a public interaction, and so something happened, but hopefully it was just between friends and it's nothing serious.
One of the things I read where it was I don't know if they've confirmed it was his account, but the transaction was between John Mateer, and then the name of one of his Washington State teammates. So it would be kind of a coincidence if those two people were Venmoing each other and they just happen to know each other. They're not the players on the team. So it seems like that's a real account. I mean, sometimes people write silly things on their Venmo, like you go to dinner and like your buddy goes like services rendered or something, just like stupid thing, you're splitting the check, whatever it is. People write silly stuff. I saw like Andy Staples tweet, he only uses emojis for that, or he does it private and stuff. And, I'll put like, for whatever, I usually just kind of put what it is, but I don't know. That's a weird one, but the fact that it was like the USC UCLA game, I thought was kind of funny.
Well, the lesson here for any athlete, don't bet. Look what's happening in the NBA. I think something just came out about Shohei Ohtani again today. There's some big lawsuit involving his agent. I thought that was put to bed, but something else is happening with that.
Yeah, I saw that was a weird one too.
So just don't jeopardize it. And this is what's happening when it's easier to gamble now. Like, it's easier to slip up, but we're seeing it in Major League Baseball too. Just don't gamble.
Yeah, Jeff says payments for fantasy football always have something ridiculous. Yes,
Yeah.
Because that's the most common thing where you're doing a fantasy football league, and say it's for burgers or something. Don't say it's for some gambling thing. But just in case, if you have an employer or whatever that could look at it like, hey, you're gambling. And I mean, I don't think people look at fantasy football and everyone putting in $20 or $50 or $100 or whatever it is as that big of a deal, but probably don't put that in there in the description.
Yeah, and then one thing with USC, I think something that we don't talk about enough is with Lincoln Riley, like the players that they've brought in, and I do feel like they have a really good mix chemistry-wise, and like you don't really hear any negative off-the-field stories about people at USC over the past few years who were on the current roster. So definitely want to bring that up and tip of the cap to that staff because, I think Oregon just had a 5-star receiver suspended for a couple of weeks because he's fighting with the players and the coaches. Like,
yeah,
not to compare the two programs, like, that doesn't necessarily lead to wins or losses or anything, but just in terms of having the right mix of guys in the room, like I do think USC's done a great job with that.
T-Hack says, I say if he bet against USC, he deserves a suspension. That's funny. During the sanction time, we were like, oh, he bet, like USC fans would joke like, oh, he bet on a USC game. You should suspend USC for whatever, yes. So a lot of NCAA talk in there. All right, well, why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and do questions. Back in a minute, everyone. All righty, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast, and you've heard us talk for a while. Let's play a voicemail and see what Rick has to say.
Hey, Peristyle, it's Rick from Vista. I'm checking in with you guys. Appreciate the show. I got some thoughts on the team. I think it's a consensus that the defense is going to be better. And with that being the case, we didn't have the depth that we do this year. With that being the case, I think that should translate to a better season defensively, and that should translate into some wins. As well as the offense, as usual, we've got great skill position players, so that part we're not lacking. I think the consensus is, again, that the offensive line is a concern. But let me give you my thoughts on that. You got a left tackle that was starting, that was, in some cases, preseason, All-American freshman. You got a right guard who started, I think, most of the year. Then you bring in a center from Syracuse who I think started 2 or 3 years. And if that's not worthy of a starter, I don't know what is. So basically our concern is right tackle or left guard. But you've got a right tackle, Tobias Raymond, who played a little bit last year. I think maybe a little bit more than I think, but he played a little bit and he played pretty well. Then you've got the left guard, and I keep hearing Benuelos, but you've still got the guy who came in with Justin, can't remember his last name. He came in to play in the A&M game, even though they didn't have their best players. It was a good experience for them. So this year, I would think that we're in a better position offensive line than we were last year. We have a little bit more depth, and it's just going to take some time. And guess what? We've got 2 or 3 games in the front end to get the offensive line ready to go to where they're an important factor in this team. So I just want to know your thoughts. Thank you.
All right.
A lot of thoughts from Rick.
Yeah, no, hey, some good offensive line stuff. Last year, they didn't start very well, but the line did get a lot better as the year went on. So that's just something that we need to point out. It's just hard to evaluate it right now because I don't even think we know the starting 5 right now. So I don't want to say with any certainty who those guys will be. There's the DJ Wingfield situation would all feel better if he was in the mix. It's too bad he's had to miss a lot of fall camp. So I don't really have any hard-hitting analysis on the line other than it's a question mark, which is something we've all been saying. I think Tobias Raymond is having a good camp from what we've heard. He's taken a lot of reps at right tackle. He may end up winning that job. We've also heard he might play some guard in some situations. So where he winds up ends up being a pretty big factor. And then Justin Tawanu'u will probably start at right tackle if it's not Tobias Raymond. So it's just really hard to break it down because, yes, they have an easy start to the schedule, but that first game against Illinois has a hell of an edge rusher by the name of Gabe Jacas, who will be an NFL pick. And, like, we just don't really know what the offensive line will do until they go up against the guy who is as good as Jacas is. So I don't want to say we won't learn anything from those first 4 games, especially that road game at Purdue, how they do in a hostile environment. That'll be something to pay attention to. But, like, I think it's really challenging to say right now, like, oh, they'll be good or they'll be bad. There's just so much we don't know. So I understand the cautious optimism. Tobias Raymond did play a little bit last year. I don't think he would even say he played tremendously well last year, but he learned, and there are reasons to be optimistic. But I just go back to this. I thought the 2023 offensive line with Michael Tarquin and with Monheim and Dedich and all those guys, Jarrett Kingston, who was an NFL draft pick, I thought that line was going to be good. It wasn't. So on paper, I kind of like a lot of those guys better than I like a lot of these guys, but it's all about the mix, and these guys could certainly be better than that line. I think we all hope that would be the case. We just don't know what we don't know at this point, and it's very hard to project that they'll be good with so many unknowns.
No, I agree with you there. Let's go to an email from Tina in LA. Due to Prophet Brown's injury, could you see Anthony Beavers moving back to DB, or is he definitely set at linebacker? I really want to see him on the field, but the linebacker room looks stacked. Thanks and fight on from Tina.
He's been battling an injury, so he hasn't even been playing a ton at linebacker. I just don't really see him getting on the field much defensively this year. I think he's been recruited over. Guys have passed him up. Even Elijah Newby going back to linebacker, that doesn't help his case. So maybe when he gets healthy, will he move back to the defensive back room? I guess never say never, but I think he's in there as a linebacker, and I would be surprised if he had a role this year on defense. I
agree with you there. We had kind of a follow-up, I guess, to that in the chat. Fight on, Chris. Do you think Prophet Brown will redshirt? I would. If he misses the first half of the season, come back second half of the season and play the last 4 games postseason, and he will still have another year. My understanding is he doesn't have a redshirt available. Is that your understanding? I looked up shotguns. He gave us a list. We have listed him as a 5th-year senior. So no COVID, no free year. I think he's redshirted, so I don't think he's eligible for that.
Yes, that's correct. And I'm confused with how the medical red shirts work. Like, if you get hurt before the season, can you get one of those? The rules seem to change all the time. So I don't know if that's an avenue that he could pursue a medical red shirt. But yeah, he already redshirted in his career. So he just can't, without a medical red shirt, do that. So that'll be an avenue for him to look at. But he's also an older guy. I wonder if he can come back, he would just say, hey, like, I've given it my all. This is my 5th year already. Just time to go. But hey, look at all options. The guys get paid now. If he could get a 6th year through a medical red shirt, I'd try it. So we can ask about that. We can see. But yeah, he doesn't have the traditional red shirt available.
Yeah, we'll see, like, after the first few games, if it's looking like, when USC gets to their bye week, if, like, he's going to be able to come back then, or if it's not, then it's like, okay, are you going to talk second half of the season? Or are you going to talk the last few games of the season? And if it's just the last few games of the season, then maybe that's a thing that would come up. We had an email from Scott in Houston. He says, USC clearly has more NFL caliber players on defense this year, which should result in a higher win total. The real concern is whether the Trojans will have the running game to win on the road in the Big Ten. Is 9-3 a reasonable expectation for this team in your view?
I do think 9-3 is reasonable. I saw Josh Pate did his USC preview, and he has a model that had USC at 8-4. There's a model that I look at that has USC at 8-4. So I think the numbers are kind of pointing to that.
The Vegas over under 7.5, but I think it's juiced towards
towards 8.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of signs pointing to 8-4. So is it out of the realm of possibility that they can be one win better than that and get to 9-3? No. So I'll just be upfront about it. My record prediction, I keep going back and forth in my head. Is it 9-3? Is it 8-4? I have a hard time getting to 10-2 with them because of the question marks with the offensive line and the quarterback who's prone to turnovers. But 9-3 I think is certainly realistic. And there are days I think that's what it'll be, and then I go to bed and I wake up, and then there's days I think it'll be 8-4. So we'll see. I'm still working through that.
Bay Area Sports Emo says, hey, what are our record predictions? I'm in the same sort of boat. I do the over for 7.5 for sure. And we talked to Harvey Hyde yesterday. He's big on the over for that, even though it's juiced, but I would say, I mean, if I had to bet a significant amount of money, I'd probably feel more confident in 8-4 than 9-3, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for sure. It could do better than that, but I feel like they've fixed a lot of things, but some of the stuff is just are you going to lose some weird game? And the other thing is do you beat Oregon on the road or Notre Dame on the road, or one of those teams maybe not as good as people think, and you're able to go in there and get a win? We just haven't seen it yet. These road games have been really tough for USC, and playing ranked teams on the road, 3 of them, that's it's hard to predict them to do better than 9-3 when you have to do that.
And injuries will happen, of course. USC hasn't had a significant offensive line injury in a couple of years, so I'm not saying that will happen, but just guys get hurt all the time. So that's going to be something to pay attention to too, where I think everyone, if the roster is healthy, feels really good about over 7.5. But there's a reason it's at 7.5. If USC gets some bad injury luck, I could see it going under. So this is all assuming that they're going to stay healthy, because they are thin on the offensive line. They're thin at linebacker. They're thin at edge rusher. An injury at one of those spots could be detrimental. An injury at quarterback, we all like what we've seen from Hussein Longstreet, but it's pretty clear that I don't think he's ready to start as a first-year guy, so that would certainly impact things as well. That would impact any team, of course. So just that's something that we'll need to pay attention to as well.
Yeah. Someone's saying the audio's low. Okay, look, we got all this stuff fixed. I think other people are saying it's sounding good, but if you're having some problems, let me know. That sounds very, very, very weird. Okay, let's go to our next question. Which player has been your favorite interview this season or preseason?
Favorite interview.
I mean, I got one.
Big General?
Yes, Jean-Ray Reed. He was awesome. Now, he said a few things he probably shouldn't have said, but I don't think it was in a I don't think there was anything bad about it, but I would say he was awesome. I mean, Braylon Shelby, just the one we did this morning, was great. I mean, there's a lot of really good ones. The guys are, for the most part, have been great.
Big General is a hilarious dude. I had a nice chat with Tamir Robinson at Big Ten Media Day, or not at Big Ten Media Day, USC Media Day. He was someone who I enjoyed chatting with, so he comes to mind. I'm trying to think of anyone else. I'd probably pick him, but I think the guy who took the cake this year was Big General. That was a hilarious House of Victory interview. I recommend everyone to go back and watch that.
Yeah, it was a really, really good one. Next question in the chat, HR Pickett stuff. It says, Ryan, I'm hearing 2 guys making noise out of nowhere from the offensive line. Adam Dunn, Hayden Treader. Are these guys the future of the offensive line?
I don't know if it'll be next year for Dunn, but Treater next year will have a chance to play guard, and maybe if there's an injury, he'll have a chance to play guard this year. He seems to be developing really well. And then, Aaron Dunn has been taking some left tackle reps. So it's hard to project it out. So much can change with the portal, of course, and guys leaving, guys coming in. But we've heard good things about those 2 guys. Treater, I think, will have a chance to play this year if there's an injury. Dunn probably will redshirt like Treater did last year. Treater's in his second year, Dunn's in his first. But is it possible that those two guys start in the future? Absolutely. They seem to be on the right track.
Yeah, we're hearing good things for sure. Let's go to Brandon. He's on YouTube. Thank you for being over there and watching us live. How do you see Riley splitting the carries between all three backs, Wayman, B-Jack, and Sanders?
It's an interesting question because they have three guys who they like.
Yes.
Last year, I kind of feel like they had one guy that they liked. Not that they didn't necessarily love the guy who transferred to A&M, Joyner, but like they just didn't use him a lot, and it was the Woody Marks show. So Wayman Jordan, to me, feels like the starter. We've talked a lot about that, but I could see them splitting up the carries a little bit more evenly than last year. But if Jordan has the hot hand, he has the hot hand, and he's going to be the guy to start. So if he is having a lot of success, I could see it looking similar to last year where he is out there a ton, and then maybe Brian Jackson or Eli Sanders is that Quentin Joyner role. But if Wayman Jordan isn't playing at an elite level right away, I could see him splitting it up more with those other guys. And I think Eli Sanders, it looks like he'll be involved in the pass game a little bit. So Jordan will be the guy, but then the other guys after him, it'll depend on what Jordan does. And if those guys seize their opportunities, maybe they can push for playing time too. But it's hard because Riley has rode the hot hand in the past, and they have three guys they like. I wouldn't expect them to really totally change how they operate in that way.
All right, let's see. Blackie Chan. Oh, we just got another good question in there. Let me get this. Blackie Chan wants to know, do you think Walker and Newby are ahead of Beavers on the depth chart at linebacker?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Especially Walker. I think he's going to be playing a good amount this year.
Yeah.
And Newby, it seems like it's coming on too, but I'm a little perplexed by his position change. I don't necessarily know if that'll lead to him playing. I think he still has some learning to do under Rob Ryan because he didn't practice there a whole lot in the spring. But there are some packages with him where if they're looking to blitz, his speed on the edge, I think could be useful. So I'm not saying he won't play, but I don't know if he'll have as big of a role as Jaden Walker.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me go to, sorry, let me come back to you. Oh, this was Bless and Breaks, more of a comment, but I wanted to pull it up here. Thanks again for being active in the chat. Guys, if you sign up for a yearly membership to USCfootball.com, you get a free membership to Paramount Plus. That means you'll get to watch the UFC for free starting next year. UFC plus USC, can't beat that. That is true. So we are doing a 50% promo right now. So you can sign up for a whole year and it's $60. When you go after it renews and you're paying the regular price, then you get a Paramount Plus subscription too, which is over $100 value. And we just announced this morning that the UFC, so instead of doing pay-per-view, if you're a big UFC person, you don't have to buy the fights, you just watch Paramount Plus and they'll be on there. So I think the Paramount Plus subscription is a great bonus. If you want to sign up and actually get Paramount right away, you can email me, Ryan at USCfootball.com. Let me know. We can sign you up without the promo, and then you're just paying the regular price. And you get, it's basically like 100% value because it's the same price as a 247 subscription. You get that for free on Paramount Plus. So thanks for pointing that out, Bless and Breaks. But yeah, that was cool news yesterday that if you like the UFC, it's going to be on Paramount Plus starting next year.
And wasn't it like a $7 billion deal? Like a massive deal.
I think it was. I think it was really big. Yeah. Crazy.
Hopefully some of that, or I guess they're paying UFC. No, I was saying.
Yeah, it's not.
Paramount was getting paid. Maybe some of that money will trickle down.
Yes. JVS, what kind of camera are you shooting with, Ryan? So if you're talking about the still camera, I have like an older Nikon. I think my lens is like a 200, but it's like a faster speed lens. I'm not a big like photographer. My pictures come out pretty good though. Like I got some good shots. But in here we just have some mostly like webcams and stuff. If you're talking about this, T-Hack has a question. What's the road game you're most looking forward to attending this year? Not that it matters, but it's one word, not THAC. Wait, is it THAC? One word, not hack. T-Hack, THAC. Okay. Sorry. I thought about the road game. THAC. Hey, THAC. Sorry.
I come back to 2. I am excited to check out Nebraska, that college town. Haven't been there before. And then the campus in Notre Dame is always awesome. So did that for the first time. My first year, 2023. That was a cool experience just being on that campus. And my family was in town, so a lot of good memories there. But, yeah, those are the 2 that come to mind.
Yeah, I've been to Nebraska before. I like that one a lot. But and I like going to Oregon, but I've done that, obviously. Maybe so the Illinois game, I think that'll be kind of fun. But Purdue, I'm not really looking forward to that much. Notre Dame I've been to. So last year there was new kind of trips. And this year it's kind of a little, I've done them before, but I haven't done the press box, I guess, for Nebraska. So that'll be kind of interesting. But here's a long one from Daniel. Question, Thanos.
Hearing good things. I think he'll be in the rotation, and I see him as an interior guy to start, and maybe he'll have some snaps on the edge too, but he's progressing well. He's been out there every day, which is huge. There have been some guys banged up. He comes out to practice first. He's all business. He's doing all the right things, everything that you would want to see from your high-profile true freshman. He's doing. So, yeah, the words I keep coming back to with him are on the right track.
Yeah, which is great. Bay Area sports, Emu. If you had to pick one between Lane and Lemon to win the Biletnikoff, who would you pick? Only Lemon's on the watch list.
Yeah, I think Lane is the safer bet, Lemon is the safer bet, but I could see Lane because of that touchdown ability getting in that mix as well. But I think the smarter pick would be Lemon, but the kind of sexy dark horse pick is Lane, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but Jeremiah Smith is probably going to win, so I don't know. Right?
I keep being a bad guy and bringing up injuries, but hey, if he gets hurt, then it's wide open.
Yeah, but yeah, I would go with Lemon. The fact that they didn't even have Lane, I guess when Marquise Lee won, he wasn't on the initial watch list either, so maybe that bodes well.
No, but it was bad. He had 12 touchdowns last year. I think that was 3rd or 4th in the nation. That should get you on.
Second most returning touchdown production.
Yeah,
of any wide receiver.
behind Smith.
And you can't make a stupid watch list that's an oversight, which I hate watch lists anyway. So we don't need to talk about that much. Dog's Life in Portland, predictions for the first emergency podcast.
Oh boy.
Okay.
The darkest timeline is after the Georgia Southern, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, yes, that would be that's emergency.
We'd have to do that in the press box. Maybe that would be right after.
What are potential? Let's pull up the schedule. So
I mean, Purdue, if that game is ugly. But realistically, Illinois, if that game, if USC starts 4-0, which we all expect them to, and then Illinois doesn't look good, maybe that would be one.
Any of the first 3 games would be emergency podcast worthy. Losing to Michigan State at home. I mean, I don't know if that's an emergency podcast. That would be bad, but whatever.
I think that would be emergency. Michigan State stinks.
They kind of stink. Okay, so we'll do the first 4. Losing on the road to a ranked Illinois team, probably not emergency. Unless it was blowout city. Maybe exactly the way it happened before. USC had a lead and blew it. Maybe you could say that's an emergency, but losing to a ranked team on the road, it's Losing to Michigan at home, I
think the only emergency podcast I've been a part of was Notre Dame in 2023, right? Did we do an emergency one last year?
I don't think we did. Losing to Notre Dame on the road, Nebraska on the road, are those emergencies?
Well, Notre Dame, it was just we were all so surprised by how bad the offensive line was. That's what fed it.
And Caleb Williams threw a bunch of picks or whatever.
And then Riley talked about how they were close if they didn't throw the picks. It's you ever see that video? It's if my grandmother had wheels, she'd have been a bike.
Exactly. Northwestern would certainly be an emergency. I don't know about Iowa at home. It's just hard. There's you have to it has to be a very much unexpected loss. Maryland, was probably, did we do an emergency one then, or did we?
I think we were just F this.
By then you're yeah.
It's kind of, which maybe isn't good to admit, but I think it just kind of set in like, man, like they just are who they are.
Yeah.
I'll say this: they are not losing to Missouri State. That's not a hot take, but I did my Missouri State preview this week. Their over under for wins is 4.5. Their first year in the FBS. I think USC wins by 30.
What is this from? Okay. Who do you think has solidified the backup quarterback spot? Heward or Longstreet?
Longstreet, but it's interesting because you want to factor in a red shirt with him. So let's say the first 2 games are blowouts. He gets in those games. That's good. But like, I feel like they're going to have to manage him where you only get 4. So like let's say USC has 4 blowouts to start the year in an ideal world, and he's in at the end of them. Then maybe do you switch it and Heward becomes the backup because you don't want to blow the red shirt? So I don't know if they'll be upfront with us and explain their thinking, but I think it is valuable to hold on to that first red shirt. But hey, if you're Hassan Longstreet, maybe you're thinking, I'm a 5-star quarterback. I want to be in the NFL after 3 years anyway. I don't care about the red shirt. Have me be the backup the whole season. That's the mindset that he probably does have. So maybe the coaching staff will go along with that and he'll just be the backup all year. But like, let's throw the red shirt thing out of it. Longstreet is the backup.
Yeah. And I think we're going to end with, hold on. We got a couple. Okay. Well, Pauly has one good one, one bad one. Here's the bad one. Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Like, okay, Pauly, come on. Like, it's
Trader Joe's.
Duh. It's Trader freaking Joe's, like all day long. But he also wants to know, I'll put this up on the screen for you. Marquise Gallegos getting some playing time this year. Possibilities.
I think it'll be like a year ago where if it's a blowout, he'll have a chance to get in. I think he played in 1 game last year, if I'm not mistaken. But I just think there's a lot of guys ahead of him on the safety depth chart.
All right. And then our last one, we'll go to Thack, not T-Hack. Does USC give any acknowledgement to Clay Helton for his time like at USC, like video picks, etc.? Obviously, he wasn't a good coach for us, but he did win a Rose Bowl and league championship, or just booze?
That's a great question. I don't know how they're going to play that. I'll defer to you, Ryan. You've been around a lot longer than me.
You calling me old?
What do you think?
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
It's tough. I'm going to send some text messages right after the show and see what there is. My guess is there's sort of like, let it go. I'm guessing he's going to get, it's not like you announce the head coach or anything. But I think if they did something to acknowledge him, you don't want to like say, hey, here's our former head coach that won the Rose Bowl, and then have people boo. So I think if they acknowledge him, it wouldn't be, I don't know, the reception from fans wouldn't be great. But in general, like, when Jim Harbaugh would come into the Coliseum, like, maybe if they put him up on the screen, I just think they're just sort of like, Clay Helton's going to be the head coach on the sideline. It's hard to boo him. Like, they're not like announcing the starters and here's Clay Helton, the head coach, and they have him run out and then get booed or whatever. So, yeah, I think they're just going to let it go is my guess. But I'll send some text to see what I can find out.
Yeah, maybe instead of something on the video board, just the PA guy says like, thank you, but
they might boo that too.
Yeah. Oh no, but then maybe thank you, Clay Helton, and now time for the national anthem. So that way you can't.
I like that. Yeah, and then, in the chat, Jeff said he was a bad coach. Sorry, that's the wrong one that came up. He says bad coach, but not a bad human. Yeah, and I agree. Like, he was always nice to us. It's hard to blame someone for getting a job that they shouldn't have got. You wouldn't say no to getting paid millions of dollars a year if someone offered you a job you weren't really qualified for. People are get mad at him, but he wasn't a bad guy. So I don't want to see him. I don't want to personally see him get booed out there. So my guess is like no real acknowledgement, but yeah, we'll see. I'll see what I can find out.
We have a John Mateer statement. I know it's not USC.
Oh, you want to? Yeah, like breaking. Hold on, we got breaking news.
Here's what he said. The allegations that I once participated in sports gambling are false. My previous Venmo descriptions did not accurately portray the transactions in question, but were instead inside jokes between me and my friends. Me inserting myself here, I don't believe that. I have never bet on sports. I understand the seriousness of the matter, but recognize that taken out of context, those Venmo descriptions suggest otherwise. I can assure my teammates, coaches, and officials at the NCAA that I have not engaged in any sports gambling. Pretty weird inside joke, but there you have it.
Very specific. You know,
yes.
For a Washington State guy to talk about betting on with a Washington State teammate. So at least it's acknowledged it's his Venmo. So we do know that, which, I mean, there wasn't much question of that. But he's just saying that sounds like what a lawyer would tell you to say to me.
Deny, deny, deny. Deny until you die, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. All right.
We'll see.
Well, thanks for bringing us that.
Don't bet on sports.
Yeah, don't bet on sports.
If you're a player.
Yeah. But you can bet on us, giving you the best coverage for USC football out there anywhere. And I know we just had a Helium Boys podcast go up. We had a Harvey Hyde podcast. I'm sure we'll have a composite 2-star recruits. A lot of podcasts and stuff, especially early in the week. So you can kind of digest them throughout the week as we head into the scrimmage on Friday. A few more practices this week. We'll be out there, guys, covering it all for you over at uscfootball.com. And don't forget, 50% off an annual membership. You should jump in there. Like, it's just not that much money. You will love it. You will, if you love this stuff, if you're listening an hour and 12 minutes into our show still, that means you really love USC football. Go read the Peristyle. I created this message board back in 1996. The oldest one out there, the biggest one out there. It's insane. Next year will be 30th year. You don't want to miss it. If you've been someone that just listens to the free stuff for a while, dip your toe in. I think you will enjoy that. And you'll enjoy Connor's stories, my stories, everybody else there on the staff. And we thank you all for listening. We thank you, Connor, for joining me again. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.